The morning after.
I'm excited to talk about this one. I never asked you this question, but is this autobiographical?
I'm pretty sure I might have mentioned this in one of the past episodes, but yeah, I did, but I'm going to say it again because it's worth it. An English professor I once had said that all fiction is nonfiction.
Yeah.
And so I think whenever we write or create anything, there's a piece of us and a part of our experience that's within it. So morning after it, there's a memory, like there is a place or was, I don't know if it's still there anymore. I don't know if it was actually Russian or Ukrainian. I think it was Russian. Maybe it was Ukrainian. It's called Odessa, and it was Ukrainian. It was a place that was like one of those 24-hour diners, and it did have a signage that was like old school, like in red. And you would go there after, like I used to bartend back in the day, and you would go there and get special coffee. So you would get coffee spiked with vodka. So it's like where you would go to like continue to hang and to chill, but in a totally different environment. You could have pierogies and then special coffee and sit in these like red vinyl booths. It was very New York. And so that was a very real memory. And I used to do that. Was it with someone who could have become a lover? Yeah, maybe. You know what I mean? Like there's memories of meeting people and having these intimate conversations and moments that you know could go somewhere else if you allowed the fantasy to unfold. And I say fantasy because you don't really know the person. That used to be my jam. I was falling in love with love. You fall in love with the idea of someone or the feeling that someone gives you or that you get without really knowing the person. So it's kind of like a fantasy once again, because you can project everything you might want that person to be and fill in all the imaginative blanks. And I have one hell of an imagination. So I think the morning after was really a way of saying enough with fantasy. At least have a fantasy for an evening, and then end it there. Like that's enough, right? So enough with like long-term fantasy. It's time to do things in a different way to like inhabit reality. So yeah, it is autobiographical in some ways, even though the event didn't take place exactly in that way.
Yeah. It always felt that way to me, like listening to it. I always felt like it felt a little too real to be completely fiction. Yeah. So, yeah, you mentioned your professor. It reminds me of something that I've heard about mythology. None of it happened. All of it's true.
I love that.
It's a similar idea of just like, by tapping into these like archetypal human experiences, you can make something that is completely convincing, that is technically fiction, but you resonate with it like it's fact. I don't know. Like I feel that way about so much that I take in. It almost doesn't matter if it's real or not because it speaks to you. When I say real, like actually happened, because it speaks to you in such a primal way. I don't know. So I got that a lot with this poem.
Yeah, well, it did actually happen, just not as succinctly and beautifully packaged as it was in the poem, but all of it was true.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen exactly in that way.
Right. I experience that whenever I write things. Like if I just wrote a short film and it's very autobiographical, but it's not me. Like it's just facets of my experience kind of condensed into this form. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and it felt important in the book because it also marks a passage, a transition, a shift from, not getting lost in escapism or fantasy and still getting to enjoy the imaginative realm and like those moments, but staying within oneself. So at the end of the poem, she throws out his number.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say crumpling it up and throwing it in the trash.
Throwing it out. So it's like, that was cute. That was a moment. It was sweet. It was tender. It was a little escape, little fantasy moment, and fantasy in the sense that I can imagine all types of possibilities of who this person might be and who we might be together. And preserve that because I never have to find out, and then throwing his number out was a way of reclaiming reality.
That's cool. It reminds me of, do you listen at all to Childish Gambino?
Yeah.
he has this song called Psilocybe. It's about a mushroom trip that he took with this woman, I guess. And like it kind of like ends with her saying, I'm not looking for a lifetime, let's just live in tonight. It's a similar idea of just like, yeah, it's like he's trying to run off with his fantasy of the way that things can be. And she's just like, nah, it's just one night and then we're going to go our separate ways.
Yeah.
It's a similar idea, I guess.
I'm
And
gonna
it's
have
like,
to listen
there's
to that
nothing.
track.
Yeah, it's a great track.
Oh,
It's
I'm
really,
gonna hear
really
it. I'm gonna
good.
check it out.
But it's a similar idea of like nothing wrong with like having this night or this time or this thing, but they don't always materialize into these like lifelong connections. So yeah,
No,
I
and
don't know.
and often my imagination can be much better than reality.
Sure, yeah, we've all had that happen, right? You end up with maybe a person that it's like, well, maybe that should have just been the one night.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
So tell me about the music. What inspired that
oh,
piece?
well, I had mentioned this before very early on in our little podcast series we're doing. I remember working on Come On In, and I had this one version of Come On In. We were like, no, let's not go there. Let's go somewhere different. And I remember the next day coming in and pulling up Come On In, and the prompt for that was Easy Breezy. And I remember telling you I'm not feeling easy breezy today, and so I started working on Come On In version 2, and it turned into The Morning After. I guess I was more in this idea of like this blissful fantasy that's not going to work out, whatever. Like I was more in that sort of headspace. I could tackle that more easily and more honestly than, well, if you listen to Come On In, it's obviously a very different thing. So yeah, do you have the prompt for
I
Morning
do,
After?
but before I jump into that, I just want to note
Yeah.
something. I think it's really interesting and beautiful that when you're creating the music, you have to come from that real space within, like what's real for you in that moment and what you're feeling in that moment, and to be able to both acknowledge that and then say, yeah, I can still create in this state, but it's going to be for a different kind of vibe is really
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really insightful.
Yeah. And I think that we've talked about this before, this idea of like good or bad. It's like, well, how about just like what's true?
Yeah.
And I've learned that I can't force anything when it comes to creating. Or it's not that you don't like, the whole like put your ass in the chair, like definitely. And I put my ass in the chair, but I knew that I was not going to do Come On In. And I think that in the past, I probably would have been like, no, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it happen. And it would have taken 8 hours, and maybe somewhere along the way something might have met. I don't know. It just never seems to work that way. But by acknowledging that I wasn't in that place and instead I was more over here, I was like, well, I'll just ride this wave. And I feel like as creatives, like something that we don't know we have the power of this idea of like transmuting energy. And so if you're in a more quote unquote negative headspace, or you're feeling things that you would rather not feel, like you can put that into the work and it can go into the work and then it can be gone. Cause like I remember I made Morning After and then I was like, I feel so much better. Like whatever the feelings were, whatever the emotions were, whatever I was going through that day, it went into the work, and I like the work. I love Morning After. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. Like, I really like
Definitely.
it. But I didn't like the way I felt when I was making it. But after making it, I felt better. I don't know. So there's something about that. Give me the vibe, and then we'll talk
All right.
about
All right. The
some of
vibe.
the other stuff.
So the vibe, just in case you're jumping in for the first time, it's kind of what kicked off our creative process as a team, right? So I would send like the vibe that the poem was trying to hit. All right. All right. Vibe, sexy indie morning after memory, lingering intimacy, a mix of physical and emotional closeness that feels especially potent in the early morning hours. An emotional snapshot, intimate, lip biting, with a dreamy quality that blurs the line between memory and the present moment, between last night and this morning.
That's a beautiful way of describing it. I think we got close if we didn't get there all the way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. I think you really captured this dreamy, fantasy, intimate, rich moment in time. Like reliving the memory is also what the poem is doing, right? Because she wakes up and she smells cigarette in her hair and then
Yeah.
is brought back to the memory of last night.
Yeah. There were a few little happy accidents that I feel like happened. This is like, par for the course. If you've heard us talk about all these songs, I always feel like I'm like, ooh, what just happened there? I know I'm technically doing it, but sometimes, oh, that was nice. And like, one of the gifts of this song to me is just the main synth line that's like da 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 da. That little motif, the way it sounds, the way it feels, the energy, it's like almost a spiritual thing. There's something about that particular line that to me was representative of last night. Like that to me was the memory, the us that was the two people sitting at the diner together, like having a moment. It was that synth line. And I'll do that a lot where I'll create a character out of a part and sort of use that as a template or a map or a guide or something. So I do remember that. Also, you mentioned the indie feel. And I don't know if you used the word lo-fi or maybe we talked about it some. I can't remember. But even just like that, because I'm a drummer first. And so I have the ability to get very granular with the drums. I can go like super detailed and make very complex things just because like that's the way my brain works naturally as I'm a drummer. And this is the opposite. It's literally just like doom doom ka doom doom ka the entire time. Like there's nothing different. There's nothing else going on. And I remember doing that and just kind of being like, I think that's going to be it. Just kind of gave it this like steady foundation. And even with the bass, because you like darker, heavier kind of things, and like this is that because it's got that heavy drum beat, but also with this like dark synth bass. And I remember that chord progression just coming out and playing it on the synth, and it just felt really good. And I don't even know at first when I started making it. In fact, I think I remember making the music, at least like getting that chord progression, and then like looking maybe at your prompts and then going like, oh, the morning after, and then putting the poem on. I didn't do that a lot, but I think that that's one of those times that I did. I probably like started the track, then put the morning after poem on top very soon into the process for sure, because I wouldn't have added all the other keys and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It was a slightly different process than normal, but it was fun. Do you remember getting the music back for the first time?
I think it was one of those easier ones where we both were like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. There are some tracks, as we spoke about, we went back and forth a lot more on. And there's some that just hit, just like it hits that spot. It hits, like for me, when I'm listening, it's really about, does it create that mood? Does it create that feeling? And of course, there are going to be differences in interpretation of mood and feeling, but we were trying to find the sweet spot between both of us where it's like, yeah, that's a vibe. That's a vibe. It's like, I feel that vibe and you feel that vibe, which is really interesting because it's kind of like we're creating a language together.
Yeah.
Where we both kind of understand the same vibe and feeling, and it's two people, so it will look different. And that's the beauty of the creation. It's not going to be exactly how you might see it or I might see it. It's how we both see it together that creates like a common language of sound, right? And so I felt like we didn't have to do much Duolingo for this one.
Yeah, you're right. If I played the demo, it would be very, very similar to where it ended up. I know that whenever I began to, and this was one of the earlier tracks, because originally we were going to just do the 5 and the morning after was on that short list. And so I want to say that it was Hungry and Towels, which were the first 2 I started, then Pleasure Principle, and then it was Come On In this one. And so this was kind of like the last of that original batch, and it was probably right when we got done with this that you were like, hey, let's just do a whole album. So that's an interesting turning point. But I remember whenever I was doing this, we'd already done this a few times. It had been a few weeks. We had gotten into the swing of working together and shooting things back and forth. And there were things that I maybe would have not done in those first few that I was beginning to experiment with in Morning After. And one of those things was playing music along with your words. Like we talked about this with Meat, where like I would, you talked about like unclasping a bra. I would make a synth sound that to me was like personifying that in audio form, as weird as that sounds. And I remember that you had this line, you say, I tap laptop keys.
Yeah.
And whenever you say that, you hear this piano part, bum, ba, bum, bum. It's got this delay on it. And it almost sounds like, I mean, I literally was tapping keys for
Oh,
sure.
cool.
And it was just my way of playing with that. And so whenever you begin, you're basically saying, I'm starting to tell this story. I begin to play the story on the piano. And the piano part has certain motifs that repeat, but I remember playing them all, quote unquote, live. Like I would go through and like, this needs to sound a little bit more mysterious, and this should sound a little bit more longing, and this should sound a little bit more like pleasant, and just going back through and doing that with the piano. So it was one of the first times that I specifically set out to play with your words almost in a literal way, at least for me and where I'm coming from. Of course, it comes out very abstract, but I was just thinking about your words and interacting with them a little bit more straightforward than I would have in the past. I don't know.
Interesting. One of the biggest compliments that you've given me is when in conversation, sometimes one of the lines from one of the poems will just come out when you talk. And I'm like, oh, my heart warms because it's like, oh, it made it into your bones. That's so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it feels really good. And then I forgot about how many times you must have listened to the poem as you're making the track. But that just popped into my head as you're thinking about, like, you know, how you literally translate it.
Oh, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I now have so many of those. Like I have these like Pia-isms in my brain, I guess. And like, I don't know, maybe they'll stick with me, maybe they'll fade. But you're right. I've listened to the poems. Some of them, I hope they stick. I think I've just listened to them some of them I've probably listened to, I mean, close to 100 times. It's got to be a lot. Like, because I'm listening to them trying to, like, you know, get the vibe, and then I'm listening to them while I'm recording, and now I'm mixing, and now I'm bouncing, and now I'm listening. I mean, I must have listened to them 100 times, some of them for sure. So yeah, I've probably listened to your poems more than anyone. But yeah, there's a lot of little like Pia things that I just think now. Like I said before on a previous one, it's like they're little memes in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I hope I didn't do anything stupid is one of them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them. Pleasure Principle has a ton. Like Pleasure Principle is like stuck in my brain. We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Just to kind of round out the musical side, I know I also, because it's a very like pattern oriented song, I don't do this a lot, but the chord progression alternates. This is like very nerdy here. It begins on a minor chord and then it goes to the major for the music people, the 6 to the 1. And then it plays a couple more major chords, a 4 to a 5, something like that. And then on the second half, it flips to a different kind of minor chord, and it just gives it this different energy, I guess. And to me, it's unmistakable. When I hear that chord, I think of, particularly with the 7th added in, which I'm 99% sure I did, like, it's just a certain vibe or feeling that I get whenever I play that particular chord. I play more, this might sound like gibberish to people that are not musicians, but like I play more 2 chords than I would have in the past, but when I use them, they're special. Like I love a 2 chord, and they're somewhat rare. You can hear them for sure, but they're not as common as a lot of the other chords that you would hear in like pop music. But I love a good 2 chord, and this song has, to me, a good 2 chord. I think it's part of that feeling and that vibe that we're talking about. I can guarantee you if that wasn't there, it wouldn't feel the same, you know? And so I remember that, and I remember playing a lot with whenever you switch from, maybe you know the words, but like when it switches from the fantasy to this, no.
Well, it's really when she makes the decision of throwing the crumpled number into the garbage can. When she throws the number, his number out.
You specifically say, oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, you say the words like, but it didn't. Like, you say, you tricked me into believing that this night would
never end.
Night would never end, but it did. And when you say, but it did, like the music, like just kind of like that synth leaves like that. And that's part of it is like that synthesizer we were talking about. That's like the main motif. When you say it tricked me into thinking this night never ends, like that synth like fades out. And then when you say, but it does, and now we're in this different place almost. And when you say, you throw it into the trash can, but you miss.
Yeah.
The piano even kind of plays like a boom, boom, like it kind of plays not wrong notes, but it's kind of like, oh, something just fell off there.
Yeah.
And then when you say, and all that I'm left with is the memory of you. Is that what it was? Or how does it
I should know my own poems by heart. That's okay. We're going to do a performance at some point.
I love that idea.
Like, so yes. I got to get my act together in a beautiful way. So it's actually a short poem, by the way.
It is, yeah.
It's not a long one. Chiseled jawlines, exposed collarbones, sticky French toast tongues, and inky numbers on a diner napkin trick me into believing this night will never end. But it does. I throw the crumpled paper into the bin and miss. Perspiration remains my only link to you.
Beautiful. That's it. Yeah. I knew the last word was you.
Yeah.
Perspiration remains my only link to you. It's so great. And like, I remember very specifically, and I might have nudged so that when you say you, it hits at the exact downbeat of the next phrase, and the drums stop and the piano just plays this single, it's the minor note. It's just like, to me, it's just the saddest note, you just play that. It's like, yeah, it's gone. But then when you mention the perspiration remains the only link to you, but there is still a link there. And so that's why I brought the synth back, is like, yeah, there is still the memory. Like, it's
the memory, definitely.
It's not for nothing. Like, that's still there. No. And so that synth still kind of plays at the end. And that was my way of playing with that idea of like, it's fantasy in a sense, but it did happen, and there is a memory and so like, yeah, it was fun. I really love the way that ended, because it ended so dramatically. I like drama whenever you can inject that into music. Like, I want it to feel almost like a play or something like that, and I feel like we definitely got there. Like,
yeah,
like
definitely.
You said, like, we cultivated that vibe, and like, to me, this is something that I got out of every single one of your poems, is like
drama.
Well, yeah, but also like, well, I think we're just drawn to drama. We like it. I don't know. It's fun.
We're Geminis. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? We like it. We like it when things get a little fucked up. It's just fun. It's like the source material always gave me so much to play with. You know what I mean? You're talking about going out all night in the biggest city in the world, and like going out and getting into all this stuff. It's like, I mean, it's rich. Like it's not. You're not sitting here talking about like, as I sat under the tree, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, but it's like, you're not like, as I sat under the tree, I reflected on what my grandmother had told me all those years ago. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with that? But when you're like, I'm in a diner and we got spiked coffee and, this person's over here and I think we're going to be lovers and and then the next day you're writing about it. And now I'm picturing you in this apartment with your laptop. And it's like, it's so rich, because I have the event, I have the fantasy, I have what actually happened, I have what didn't happen, I have you sitting in an apartment with a laptop on the next day. There's so much. Like, it's so dense, and I get to pull all of those little things in and interpret them in my way. It might be with a bass synth or a piano part, but there's just so much. Like, you always give me so much to work with. I don't know.
But I love it. I love hearing that. The beautiful part is hearing what resonates and how you then express it through sound. I mean, that has been such a joy for me to witness. It's like, oh, then like this makes me feel, and that's a synth feeling, and that's a this, and that's a this chord. And I mean, it's been so powerful to watch your creative process of how you translate emotion into sound. Like, to me, it's just so beautiful to witness. So it's been great. And the interesting thing about perspiration remains my only link to you. It starts off with her saying, the day after sweat soaks my bralette as I tap laptop keys.
I love that.
So the sweat is, I don't know, you don't have boobs, but usually it's like the worst kind of sweat is right under your boobs and your bra, right? So
I understand.
So she's like tapping and feeling the sweat. It's a hot summer New York day. I mean, and you're also in a no AC apartment. And then the perspiration is what brings the smell and the scent and the memory and the smoke in her hair. So the combination, and that's why at the very end, perspiration remains my only link to you. It's only only that pheromone memory that's
Yeah, yeah,
resurfing along with the cigarette smoke that's caught in my hair that
yeah.
connects me to you. And that's going to be it, honey. Like there's going to be nothing else because I'm done living this kind of escapist fantasy. I can have it for a night for sure, but
Hmm.
I'm ready to kind of land in
Hmm.
reality and create my own reality kind of thing,
Yeah,
which
I love
which
it.
coincides with the book and the feeling of like where we are in the book as well.
Hmm. I never noticed, and I'm so glad you told me because I love it when that happens. And now it makes me think like it's one of my favorite things, but how many times have I missed it? But I love when any art kind of connects the beginning to the end. Like
Mm,
it's one of my favorite
mm,
things. And so it's funny because like George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, of course, the maker, he says this thing that a lot of people make fun of, but I like it. He says that, you know, the movies, he said, it's like poetry, it rhymes. And he's talking about that mirror effect where
mm,
like the first episode and the sixth episode kind of mirror each other in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I just always look for that. Like I like that.
mm,
And yeah, I'm glad that The Morning After does that. I didn't know it, but
mm.
maybe somewhere deep down I did know it because like it always resonated with me on a very deep level. And it's interesting because I love all of your poems, but there are some that are just a little bit more like that one. And The Morning After is one of those for sure.
I agree, and it's so interesting. That might also be reflective of some of my favorite tracks as well that you've made.
Hmm.
Like I feel that some of the tracks that resonate, I love obviously the entire album, but
Yeah.
some of the tracks that resonate the most are usually those ones that kind of were just like got it, it like came from someplace else, like
Hmm. Yeah.
like yep, that's it right there, and that sometimes didn't require as much
Mm.
back and forth because it was just like that's the vibe, you just nailed it.
And if I could like say what I feel like that is, it's this idea of like what we started the podcast of taking this like energy that you feel inside, whatever it might be, this true thing, and
Hmm.
putting that out. And life has a way of giving you those feelings and those emotions. Like I didn't choose to feel that way that day. Like I can't even necessarily tell you exactly what led to whatever the feelings I happened to be feeling that day, but life gave me those feelings, and then I was able to take it and put it into this thing, and it lined up enough. I mean, I didn't wake up with cigarettes, smoke in my hair, and thinking of some woman I met at a New York dive. It wasn't that. It wasn't, obviously it's not one to one.
Oh
It's
shucks.
just it's just that like the idea of, I guess, whatever that emotional thing is, it was just where I happened to be that day. And you don't always get that all the time. I won't name songs because I don't want people, maybe someone else really resonates with it. And I'm not trying to say that I didn't resonate with those poems because I resonated with all of them. But not every song or every track that I made for this album came from that. Like sometimes it's, I am a technician and these are my tools and I
Mm.
understand the assignment and I can create the thing, but sometimes it just comes from this other place. And yeah, it's not going to be 10 out of 10, but I will say on this album, I feel like it's a high percentage because there are a lot. And this, we talked about it last week. The back part of this album is like a
Yeah.
lot of those because Between Scripts is the same way.
Yeah.
Pleasure Principle is the same way. Like there are these things that just kind of like come through at just the right time. And I think that also speaks to the importance of giving yourself space when you're creating, because you have to live life in order to get the emotion, to get the experience, in order to then create the thing that you're trying to create. And I think that's something that we were able to have. And I think that's why this album has more of those versus things that might have just been like, yeah, I get what this is. Let me, with my conscious mind, create this thing versus I'm feeling this. Let me get it out. And because we took our time with the album, out of the 11 tracks, 8 or 9 of them are probably more like what we're describing, where it's like,
Mm.
this is genuine, real, like,
Mm.
and I think that it comes out. And at
Definitely.
least I can feel it.
Oh, I feel it too. Should we invite people into their fields and play the track?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
The Morning After, a poem for protagonists. The day after sweat soaks my bralette as I tap laptop keys, writing a new story, words easing from me like hot whispers in the dark. I flip my hair, releasing the scent of stale cigs, bringing last night into the morning light. A flash of us raising chipped mugs, special coffee spiked with bottom shelf vodka, grinning madly under the neon open 24 hours sign in the diner window. Wet, feral eyes, malnourished hearts, and fermented dreams in a red booth. The way the cross on your chain drags along your tongue. We share secrets and French fries, give each other static shocks, vinyl squeaking, bite ketchup-stained bottom lips. My bubblegum pink toenails pressed between your blue jeans. Chiseled jawlines, exposed collarbones, sticky French toast tongues, and inky numbers on a diner napkin tricked me into believing this night will never end. But it does. I throw the crumpled paper into the bin and miss. Perspiration remains my only link to you.